Hello, Megan. I sent Laurien the link for the stream, so hopefully she can come on, and then I can send her the invite. No, Mommy's working. Ugh, just noticing about this bruise here. I bruise super easily, so I was playing with Merlin. And yeah, we do this thing called PLAY, like DOGGIES, which is like roughhousing, and he gets so excited. And sometimes, yeah, he gets a little rough. But he's a sweet boy. Now, Laurien is coming in from Mexico, so she may not have great Wi-Fi, but she's in a resort town, so she may have good Wi-Fi. Hopefully we don't have the same issue like we had with Ira coming on last time. Okay. And okay. Why isn't that working? Oh, don't do that. Okay. Hello, Marissa. I saw you weren't feeling well earlier. I hope you're feeling better. Yeah, I know, right? Do you see his little face in the corner there? Hmm? All right, so we are talking today with Laurien Rowen. She isn't on quite yet. Laurien and I have been friends for, gosh, when did I meet her? 2006, so 15 years. Yes, 2006 was 15 years ago. Oh my God, how did that happen? So yes, Laurien's coming on today. Laurien is Romani or Roma, so she is going to talk about what it was like to grow up in a Roma home and in Roma culture, and why the GYPSY word is maybe not always the most appropriate to use for someone. So some people are comfortable saying that word, and it's funny, like I am. No worries, Megan. I totally understand. Every parent has had those nights, and we usually have a good group on our night streams, on our Friday night streams. So I'm not terribly concerned. Yes. So Laurien grew up Roma, and oh yeah, I was gonna say I am totally comfortable using swear words that, you know, I swear like a sailor when I'm not on screen, but I don't say slurs. And so slurs have kind of become the new swear words, right? So I have no problem dropping an F-bomb or you know, any other type of the traditional swear words. But when it comes to slurs, I don't say those words. And I'll say like the R word or the N word or the 3-letter F word for gay men, but I don't say those slurs. And for me, I have spoken with several Roma people who don't appreciate being called GYPSY, and there are some people who are Roma who have embraced the term and they're totally cool with it, and then there are some people who find it problematic. the word comes from that Romani people often are, not always, but often are a little bit darker in skin and darker hair, darker eyes. And so it was assumed that they were Egyptian. Hello! So we're talking about the origins of the G word. There she is. Okay, so I can add you. How do I add you again? There we go. Invite. Get the invite code. Copy to my clipboard, and then I can send a private. Oh, I can send it in Messenger. Okay, well that's handy. All right. Okay, there we go. Excuse me. Okay, so if you click that, you should be able to get into the chat. Merlin has a Kong he's having a hilarious time with, and he's going to bring it to me. You want me to throw it? Do you want me to throw it? Oh, it's under my bed now. So Laurien actually got to do something last year that you can all be jealous of. Laurien got Merlin snuggles. I was helping her move. We went from one city to another city to another city, like all over Ontario. And I brought Merlin with me to move, and he was a really lovely boy and so good for the move. And yeah, I just yeah, he's my boy. Hello, me. We can kind of see you. I can see you. I can't hear you. Oh, I haven't added you to the stream. That's why. Okay. Much better.
Okay, how's this?
Perfect. Hello.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you because I hadn't added you to the stream and pressed the button, so it was my fault.
Excellent. Okay, so now, hold on. Can you use this as my light, my backup systems. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you perfectly, and you look so tanned.
Thank you. Yes.
I was actually, I talked to you a few times on the stream when I'd talked. I'm gonna close this because we've got some sirens. Fun living downtown Hamilton. It's it's an adventure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mentioned the tarot reading that I'd given you 2 years ago. That yeah, I'd seen you in a Spanish-speaking country to do some medical tourism to get your teeth fixed, and you loved it so much that you stayed there.
Yes. It became this. It was an incredible. As per all my readings with you, there's such crux points, such pivotal moments, and the importance of me coming down here, and not just. It started out for the dentistry, and but the earth here is so alive, and the culture here is as old as my culture, and I'm not the only person who still holds the keys that all ancient cultures have. All ancient cultures we have complementary keys, and we have some of the same keys. And when I walk around the street here and I see Mayan people and we connect on a level, I had this, many people comment on this when I was first here, because we would meet each other in the eyes. First off, everybody's my size. The world is actually built for me. It's unbelievable. I had no idea. This was a thing for me. But yes, so, and just the understanding of the context of the kind of values and relationship awareness with nature.
Yeah.
Life of everything. And people are so cute because they don't swat at bugs here. And when I first moved here, I would say, oh, the people like, everyone's like, oh, Canada is so cold. And I'd be like, yes, but the cold means there's no bugs 6 months of the year. And they'd look at me like, why is that good? Like, this is life. Why would you not want life? And now I understand. I was in an ecstatic dance experience a couple of months ago when things were more open here. It was a wonderful intensive, and I actually had an ant dancing with me on my body.
Oh, wow.
For 20 minutes. And then I got carried away and I was sweating and I was like, oh my gosh, Rick. And I like wiped the sweat off me and I was like, oh no, where'd they go? So, and I had a bee during the meditation. I had a bee crawling all over me and I was like, yeah, whatever. Hey, bee. It was just the difference in the relationship with everything is so incredible. It doesn't have to get out of the way, and it has the right to its own sovereignty. It has the right to its own existence. Dogs and cats and animals have their own lives, and they have the right to them. Even as pets, a lot of pets wander anyway, and they go home at night, but they have their lives. And while that is a mixed bag in many ways, the understanding and the respect for the individual and for the fact that every being has a path. It is a sovereign path. And so can we say the SURPREMACY on this when it's not associated with the color or anything else? Because the idea is human.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So
go ahead. The last time I had a guest on the show was yesterday, and my video got demonetized because I was using a tarot deck that had nudity in it. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I was really careful. I checked with all my neighbors. I wouldn't flash anyone in this outfit.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not that kind of channel.
I was like, no. Okay, so anyway, but the idea of human supremacy, the idea that somehow this is all made for us and it centers around us, permeates a lot of Western-based global culture right now.
Yeah.
And look at that phrase, Western-based global culture. Right? It is cultural erasure. Right? Identification by the shades of the color of your skin creates a oneness that erases all the nuance of identity and cultural tradition. And that is incredibly risky. And that is where, hats off to my ancestors. I have no idea. It has been a fascinating experience to my initiation in the healing tradition of my family started at 4 years old. And I'm not a quiet person, as Carolyn well knows. I am loquacious, one could say. Loquacious. I love that word.
I love that word. It's a great word.
It's amazing. I love that word. Okay. So I love words. Big surprise. Loquacious girl. Okay. So the contrast between the intensity of first, the tradition of my family is associated with the fact I have more than 72 documented senses of my synesthesia, right? Someone in neuroscience got their PhD on my brain. Cool. Nice. So that was neato, right? That was very confirming. It's really helped me relate to the world in really new ways.
I did. If I can just give a bit of a definition. So I did an essay on synesthesia in my final year of university. So it is the blending of senses. So it's a lot more common than people think. But a true synesthete, is that correct? Synesthete?
It sounds so like pretty and delicate.
Yeah. Is someone who regularly experiences similar things. So first, oh God, what's his name? Who's one of the monkeys?
Really?
Peter Tork?
I know the singer of Radiohead.
Yeah, so Peter
Tork. The singer and writer of Radiohead is very synesthetic.
Yeah, so he sees color with music. So for him, like a certain note, that's a yellow. So when he's writing a song, he's painting.
And this is where, when I get to dance to music, you can honestly see the touch of people that have synesthesia in their music, because the texture, or anyone, and here's another perspective, anyone who has particularly rich music that touches people on a lot of levels is very likely to be synesthetic. Mm-hmm. Any doctor that you have who's incredibly accurate and hones in really quickly on your situation is also likely synesthetic. It's all in our language. We have a nose for things. They have a nose for things. You can feel it in your gut.
You want to hear something banana that I've actually never told anyone?
I would love to.
So people ask, like, oh, do I hear voices? Do I see things? I am far more likely to smell or taste a spirit than I am anything else. Like, I can smell a ghost with, like, far easier, and I know from what kind of smell it is of what the person was like, if it's a positive entity, if it's a negative entity. When my grandmother's near me, I smell lilac. So I have always had a super sniffer, and people with autism tend to have, like, really sharp senses. So for me, like, my sniffer, like, I can smell if something's rotten in the kitchen, like, so fast. But yeah, I experience when there's a spirit in the room, I smell it. And when I'm experiencing someone's energy, I taste it. And it has, like, every person has a very unique taste to them. So when I'm connecting with someone, I really taste that energy. And when you're really close with someone and you know that their smell and you're very intimate with them and you have that energy exchange and you can, like, drink them in and share with of yourself with them, it's a really intimate experience. So yeah, that's my kind of synesthesis that happens in spiritual.
So here's the thing: you just described multiple forms of synesthesia that you have, and it's very common in range in spectrum experiences to have synesthesia as a huge crossover. And also one of the reasons that the concept of isolation, of feeling like you're trying to communicate, and it can be challenging because what you're communicating about is a different perceptive reality. The understanding that there is no common perceptive reality. There is no pink, as she says, but there is no pink. There's a lot of agreement over what pink is. There's
it's the way
every experience is
perceive it. So Emma has a question, and I'm not sure if it was for me or for Laurien. Does it ever cause any issues like migraines?
Oh, excellent question. Yes, because the sensory overwhelm is a very real thing. And I was very lucky because my aunt started training me, because it's hereditary. So my aunt started training me to use my senses. When I have gone through growth spurts, I would have migraine issues very much, or sensory overwhelm. I'm actually in the middle of renovating my apartment right now, and it is becoming a big sense depth space. It's going to be, when it's done, it's going to be so wonderfully quiet in my senses. It's going to be incredible. And that is really important for me. That's a reality. So yes, migraines. And when talk to the migraine, because you're communicating with you. Talk to the migraine. Okay. What is it? Hey, migraine, how you doing?
Yeah, for me, like with my, I don't know if it's really related as well. So it's easiest to say that I have an allergy to cannabis, but an allergy is actually a specific histamine thing. Like, so when someone has an allergy, there's things that happen with the immune system that, like the eyes water, the throat, either can get dry or sneezing, or sometimes it can close off if it's anaphylactic. For me, it's not like a traditional allergy, but when I am exposed to cannabis, I get migraines. And I'm having an issue right now that my neighbor upstairs, when she has migraines, she smokes cannabis. And then basically, like, I catch her migraine and I'm in bed all day. And I'm like, hey, can you at least give me a heads up so I can use the front door and not be physically assaulted when I go to walk my dog, please? Anyway, it's a different issue entirely.
your experience.
So
Thank
yeah.
you for sharing your experience with us, though, because I get that. Something else about synesthesia, it innate. Each person has a potential within them for it. Synesthesia develops over time. It is innate in the process of meditation, enlightenment, and self-development that you will develop forms of synesthesia. And talk about heightened senses, they literally develop more. And the understanding, the wild truth that your sense of smell has color, that your sense of smell, that there is, these are broader, as you were saying, you can smell ghosts, you can smell all kind of ghosts, you can see, right? And so every person has their own strengths and weaknesses, their own potential, and the innate promise to develop these tools and patterns. Like it is the promise. If you put the time into yourself, you will grow more sensory awareness. It's not a maybe.
Yeah, and essentially the place in the brain where all of the senses go is the thalamus. And if you're doing a lot of meditating, then you've got more oxygen in your brain, you've got more synapse development. So it would make sense that there's some crossover as your brain grows and you're developing more synapses. So interesting theory. I'm just thinking about this now. If we're talking about brain growth and spirituality and all this stuff, as we are in the middle of what we call on this channel the beer bug, because we can't talk about the thing that we're all dealing with in the world.
Fair.
One of the long haul symptoms that people are having is losing smell. Sometimes it comes back. Sometimes people have had it for now 2 years and their sense of smell isn't coming back. Or sometimes it comes back and the wires are just weirdly crossed. So there was I watched like a Vice documentary the other day about how somebody lost their sense of smell and then it came back, and everything that they eat, this was a mom who cooked for the family, and every food smelled like rotting garbage. And so they were having issues like keeping food down, with nausea, with trying to maintain weight and all this stuff. That's like all these issues. So I'm wondering, so the first question that I was thinking, one of the first causes or one of the first signs of Parkinson's, like it happens like 10, 20 years before Parkinson's symptoms, is loss of smell. And so I'm actually really concerned about my cousin. Like my cousin's 2 years older than I am, and she has no sense of smell. So, and this is like long before the beer bug. But so I'm wondering, like, is this, early symptoms of Parkinson's, or does she just not have a sense of smell? And I'm wondering if in 20, 30 years, with so many people losing their sense of smell with the beer bug, if they are going to end up developing Parkinson's symptoms because they got sick in 2020. I think that's a real possibility. Like, this disease does weird shit to the body and weird shit to the brain. And I just said shit and demonetized myself. So.
Oh, well, no, what? Well, the thing is, so I've actually had it 3 times. And the first time was 4 months, and losing my sense of taste and smell has been huge. I still have most of my range of what I call smell in my synesthesia. Mm-hmm. But I've always been a person, I couldn't smell poop on my shoe, but I can smell what age you got really sick, or what emotion you're carrying, or how many lovers you've had in the last 3 days, or like a million ridiculous details.
So you walk into a bar with dog poop on your shoe? I can smell it when you walk in there. And
in people's homes. Oh, not even. Yeah, it's so embarrassing. So embarrassing. So to a certain degree, I came from an angle where I had to develop a regular sense of smell. Anyway, I have brought my senses back each time. I knew it was what it was because I lost my sense of smell. So the third time was way different. I think it was a different thing. I mean, the same but different, and so, but it was, yes. So I still, like, I had the most fantastically tasting thing the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, my chef friend came to make food for me, and I'm like, I could taste it, and I was like, this is the most amazing thing. I love you. This is like, and it in tasting it, this is the thing. These things happen. And our genetic buttons, we have many genetic options for how we respond to things. So we do not have just one response. We can engage this. We can go, I can develop more and subtler senses of taste. Since, especially in this conversation, now you have the understanding in your consciousness that there are actually multiple varieties of taste. You can taste air, you can taste music, you can taste emotion, you can taste color. If you're a person that really loves art, you can taste color. It's mostly fantastic. There's some really different combinations in the world. But I've been pregnant. I liked I used to be very exploratory in taste because I had so little attachment to the framework that other people have. It's so heavy with emotion and history. And I was like, all the colors, play with the things. So I would like never wear the same outfit twice or do my hair the same way twice because I couldn't there was too much to play with. It's like, imagine your favorite playroom as a child with everything to touch and taste and explore, like your favorite. And that is the sensory potential in your body, in your experience. And for me, this comes, culturally then, bringing back to the Romani perspective. Now, understanding too, Romani is a blanket term for all of us. We decided this in the 90s. We have representation now on a global level in the United Nations. This was a huge breakthrough for all of us. And it is a collection of some very different people. Some very, very different and complementary cultures. And what we have in common is, there's way more than we have in common than we have time to list. But I speak from my family tradition because I am the holder of my family tradition. And so I can speak for myself and my family tradition, and I can address some places where I am comfortable speaking on broader terms for cultural. I almost married into an Irish traveler clan, actually. That was a neat thing in my life. That was it was one of the most beautiful courtships I've been through. And I've had, yes. And so I'm happy to speak from the perspective of the culture of my experience, right? Understanding these things are very complex. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, I know that you've talked to me a bit about some of the experiences that you've had of not being treated very well and having the G word applied to you in not very kind senses. Could you share some of that with my viewers?
Well, how exciting it is to go to Europe when you're 19. You're like, oh, yeah. And then they won't let me in. No, they want to hire me to dance. I was also a dance major, a ballet dancer. And so I remember going to Holland, going to this little town, Eindhoven. It was fine in the big cities, sort of, because they look at me and I'm very Canadian. I have a big Canadian thing on my backpack and big. And at the same time, they're like looking at, I look apparently very much exactly who I am, which is awesome because I love my ancestors. But yes, absolutely. In Eindhoven, we were there with friends who had lived with us in, I believe in the United States. An au pair that lived with my father and brothers in the United States. And when we went to visit them in Holland, we went to a place, they knew the owners, and I was still asked. I was asked to leave. I was pointed out, I was asked to leave because I was very unapologetically me, and my ancestors have always spoken so clearly through me. So in Toronto, not that long ago, I had an Eastern European neighbor whose entire family, when I was walking my dog, his entire family, like 5 or 7 people at times, would come out on their porch, and you got to realize this is also like a man in his 70s. These are elderly people. They would come out on their porch to scream at me as I was walking my dog. This is not like, it wasn't even like it was a very major area with lots of people going by. There was thousands of people past their house every day. They were right beside a subway station, right? And then, you know, I've had people spit on me in public, or there's a lot of places, there's a tradition where people from some parts of the areas around India will spit if they see one of us, because it's like we put a bad taste in their mouth. I guess they might consider us I don't really buy into their class system, and I'm not going to try and speak for that either. And for instance, when I was working with the circus, there were a bunch of Serbian performers who literally would not even acknowledge I was in the room. Yeah, I did not exist as far as they were concerned. So those are little tastes, and it's given me a lot of understanding and more empathy and compassion for what the constant experience of others. Most people don't have that context of me. But even as a child, I would run into it. And that was before the wall fell. Before the wall fell, when there weren't many Eastern Europeans, and they would lose their mind around me. Try selling Girl Guide cookies door to door. And being 8 years old and being told off by some man, and then, you know, spat at and had to leave. But this was like, I had this, I have this jewel in my life, which is my central culture. And the understanding, I know, Carolyn, you have very strong, the ancestral relationship is the most incredible. I've never been alone in my life, and I never will be. Like, never.
A lot of my a lot of my own practice in Celtic Reconstructionism is trying to get that. I mean, I grew up in a small town in a very waspy family, and my parents, you know, we went to our Anglican church every other Sunday, and very, very, you know, white bread, but there was no recognition of ancestral traditions. My grandmother grew up calling a Christmas tree a Tannenbaum. She was like 5th generation Canadian, but after that, like, I mean, we were proud of like our German heritage and German cooking, but beyond that, there was no practice. There was nothing about my English heritage, and even like I grew up hearing, well, I'm British and German, and that's it. And then I actually like went through my ancestry, got like a 2-week free trial of Ancestry, and I have ancestors from Lancaster, Scotland. I have ancestors from Dublin, Ireland. I have ancestors from places that I never thought, and there's so much that was lost. And I think trying to develop that relationship, because there's a several century, if not 1,000-year gap between what my ancestors practiced and then what was brought in of Christianity and forced at the end of a sword to develop this tradition. And there's no thinking of that. And my family isn't supportive of me practicing Druidry, and so they're like, "No, you're Canadian. This is what you do." And no, like, well, yes, I'm Canadian, but I'm not walking on the bones of my ancestors the way that Native American people are. And I really feel the sense to like reconnect with that. So I understand what that is like for you to, or I guess I wish I understood, like, if I had an aunt who was able to teach me from the age of 4. But all that has been like me connecting with ancestors kind of after the fact, and finding that I had ancestors who had gifts who passed away before I was born, and having to connect with those. Like, my mom's mom died when my mom was 7, and I've reconnected. This is a funny story. So my cousin, who I just talked about, who has no sense of smell, my friend Brad, he had a comic book shop, and Missy had a restaurant, like a cafe 2 doors down, and Brad says, you have to go meet Missy. She's super awesome, and she's into tarot too. So I go over there, and we're friends for maybe, I don't know, 2 months or so, and then she says, I think we're related. And I'm like, yeah, the grand scheme of things, we're all related somehow. And
right.
Are you related to Gail Brown? And I'm like, yeah, that's my aunt. And she's like, that's my grandma. So it's actually my mom's half sister, but like second cousin twice removed, and she's into tarot. So I think that there's some sort of line. Like, I have no connection with my mother, but there's some sort of line there through my grandmother, who died when my mom was 7. And I think that she had that gift. So like having to do that, and she's buried in England, and I've never been to England. So my mom was a base brat. So yeah, I get that.
And the thing is, you are connected to the soil where ancestors lived in such a physical way. The soil microbes are part of constructing. They were in constant communication through all the plant sterinols that interact with us on every level. They affected your DNA. They affected your emotional experience, and you are connected physically with the land where your family lived. Now, interestingly enough, that creates obviously some interesting challenges with wandering people.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps one of the reasons for the long-term relationship with the earth was the understanding that we had that we needed to keep a constant connection with the earth as we were moving.
Yeah.
That we had this in-breath, out-breath, this exchange of information that is constant in nature as part of the mycelium, as part of the greater web of nature, the cells in the body of the planet that we are, right? And so the consciousness that we need to keep this connection where we are was very important. And, carrying bits of plants that remind us of home, that remind us of good things. How many of us love favorite flowers? The smell of them brings us back to ourselves. That is our bodies and our consciousness is awakening. That is connection with our past and our genetics and our history. And so it's a consideration that when something is happening where you had ancestors, and especially ancestors of a sensitive realm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where when things are going on in their part of the world, celebrations, let's look at the positive. When there's holidays and celebrations there, consider taking that time to celebrate with them.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Really embracing what that has to offer you, because how freaking cool is that? And we know on an entanglement level, right? Your cells have entanglement relationship in a physics level with those places. And so you have a direct physical connection. And just imagine how acknowledging that energy and being aware of how that is affecting you. It's a tool. It's a whole bunch of access. It's a whole bunch of energy that's being used that you might not have considered before, that's accessible to you. There's some real amazingness in that. And I think that the sensitivities around that are very conscious in Romani culture.
So we have a question. Marissa asked, so I have my window open, my bedroom, and somebody is going back and forth to the laundry room, and Merlin is hearing them, and it's like a big metal door. So, but I don't want to get up and close the window. So anyways, yeah, I apologize for Merlin. He has a beautiful singing voice. I shouldn't apologize for him. He's a beagle. That's what they do. Anyway, so yes, we have a question from Marissa. Did TLC and their My Big Fat JYPSY series bring good attention or bad attention to your culture? Marissa says that she personally didn't know this was something that existed still when the shows aired.
Well, fair enough. Excellent question. Representation matters. And all reality shows have stuff. On the one hand, I had random dudes. I had random people at parties who have nothing to do with Romani culture decide to approach me in the aggressive, physically limiting way, which is basically a physical attack that was shown in some of the aspects of some Romani cultures. There was also pointed out that at different gatherings that were made specifically for the point of people meeting potential mates, that this was something that was not being approved of, this behavior. But I literally had random people be like, physically force me into a corner and touch me over and over and over again until trying to get me to say yes. That was something they saw on my big fat wedding, but that was the behavior of so on the one hand, some of it was really fun and joyful, and I love the fact that people got to be themselves in such amazing ways that people are like, yes, I'm on TV and now I want the absolute, I know what the biggest dress is, not just in my circle, but in all of these, different communities. So I'm going to have the biggest dress. Like, I thought that stuff was really hilarious, right? And they talked about a lot of different aspects, and I appreciated that. So that was a big thing at weddings, was who had the biggest dress. And they talked about a lot of different kinds of people and personalities in there. So I found the representation really important, as always, because it's selling something. Reality TV is a distortion. It is still entertainment. It is still likely scripted. I don't know. I wasn't there. What do I know? But it was fantastic to see, even with the G word, though it really kind of,
yeah. And it's important to recognize that often when there's a minority culture, that the men get desexualized and the women get hypersexualized. And I mean, if you think about like the one representation of Romani culture in a Disney movie being Esmeralda in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, she is the only Disney character who has ever pole danced. Why do we have one character who's Romani finally being shown and she's dancing on a pole? I was doing a little bit of research ahead of time, and I guess there was this club in England that was of these men. Now, it was Victorian age, but I'm still certain it's something that goes on today, of these men who talked about having bedded Romani women, and I'm not going to use the two words that were used to describe how they identified themselves, but there was no talk of consent in this. And so we see that with Asian women who are like othered and sexualized, and they're the exotic ones. And I think that with that kind of hyper aggressiveness, there's that objectification and sexualization of Romani women. And I mean, I know that you are a sex positive person, and that's healthy and wonderful, but consent is also key. And you can't.
And I'm an amazing prude. I mean, I am a sex positive person, but I am actually very, like, for the most part, I can see, I always thought I'd be more sexually free, but in fact, I'm still very much a product of my culture.
I tell men, I'm not a prude, but I'm still a lady. You still have to treat me like a lady.
Exactly. And I've had, I've had relationships 30 years, and like, my husband died, 25 years ago. I just stopped saying I was married. Sometimes I said it yesterday. So I didn't stop saying so there's aspects, mind you, I wouldn't marry his brother. His brother is like 14 years younger than him now. None of that was going to happen, but which is a more traditional thing. But interestingly enough, the combination of healer and widow, I've had some, there's a different amount, it's a slightly different place in traditional society. And my family have always been, my generation has been very outspokenly independent and feminist.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people that were not from families that were from a different families that took their tradition differently. I'm very lucky, and it was a huge gap between my grandmothers, who I had so much relationship with, except not the one that taught me my stuff. Her name was Millie. If I could just take a moment to honor her, her name was Millie. She was a nurse on a motorcycle at the front lines in Normandy, and she was amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and she was an amazing healer and a farmer and a mother, and held famous healing circles every month in the farmer Christian community.
And it's important to note that during the Second World War, like that's amazing that Millie was active like that, because the people, NAZI people,
Yes.
they almost exterminated Roma people, and from what I was reading, it's estimated anywhere from 20 to 50% of the Romani people who were alive at that time were exterminated in concentration camps.
Not many of us got out.
Yeah,
My
and
family, they almost wiped us out.
we hear about how many Jewish people were their life ended in these camps, but percentage-wise, it was far more Roma were targeted. And something else that you'd mentioned before, and I wanted to talk about. I don't know if it's still there. Is the law in Toronto? So Canada has a reputation of being a place that's a little more progressive and fair, and we don't think, as a white person, that there's much systemic racism in Canada. But I was floored to hear about a law that was on the books in Toronto. If you would explain that to my
so immigrants who are of Romani descent are the only, and this is incredibly illegal in Canada. It goes against the Charter of Human Rights. It goes against our basic, it should be, anyway. We are the only culture who is singled out. So as immigrants, we have an 8:30 p.m. curfew. We have to be in our apartments alone at 8:30 p.m. because we don't tend to be. Now, imagine you move to a whole another country. You're learning another culture. You're learning another language. And especially for a culture that has been so culturally intact and isolated for thousands of years. Just drink that one in.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the wave of us that you're part of. We literally, the problem was that we get together, make food, make music while all the babies fall asleep, and then the adults hang out and talk.
Yeah, and knowing you at least, and I know a few other Romani people, you're not quiet people. And if there's a group of people getting together and eating, and there's music, and you're all talking. I mean, obviously any ethnic group isn't a monolithic group, so you're one of a kind, but my God, 20 Lauriens in a room, that's pretty loud.
Fair enough on that. But the music, though, I gotta tell you, the music, the memories of my family playing music together and harmonizing, singing Country Roads was like the most beautiful memories. Mm-hmm. Of course, farmers, still playing anyway. But yes, it's true. And the music and so forth can be a lot, but even then to legislate and say 8:30 at night mm-hmm. in Toronto housing, if you're Romani, if you're an immigrant, you have to do this. Everybody else gets freedom, but you have to be in your place. And this is what we've decided it is. This is, and also this is how Canadian culture works. You get waves of immigrants. There's the resistance. There's and then there's all the waves of incredibleness that it adds to the culture. Mm-hmm. And instead, to be honest, you have a much, much higher refusal rate. For the success rate for a Roma immigrant is much lower the regular. I know this while I don't have the statistic from different, from looking at different immigrant programs that were specific to the Romani population in Toronto, and looking at, they say, like, 90% of Romani go back to where they're from. And you got to understand, this is not a good time. They're going back to places where they have no citizenship, where they have no rights, where if a Romani woman is walking down the street and she's groped or raped, they don't give a flying foodle. Now, this is the truth of experience of a lot of women in general in a lot of places in the world. Toronto is not the exception for women of any shade. Obviously, darker, we know, with color preference of prejudices and ignorance, that they're much less listened to and believed. But still, I know wealthy women in the beaches who found, cameras in their house. They know exactly who put them, but the police are like, oh, we can't be bothered. They were, someone attacked. Oh, we can't be bothered. So, but it's 1,000 times more so. And the thing is, the predators know this.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that that when people use the G word to talk about being a nomad or being a bohemian or being a hippie, they fail to realize that the reason Romani people traveled from one place to another and didn't stay in one place very long is because they weren't welcome and because they were kicked out. And so, I mean, the movie Chocolat with, with Johnny Depp, you kind of see that, like they come into town and they're not welcome and they're wild, and the local people freak out and kick them out, and then they have to find somewhere else to go. So there's been an adaptation to the nomadic life, but that's a result of circumstance and racism, and not a result of just being a free spirit. Like, you got to make the best of it, but it's
interesting insight living in a tourist area, because Mexican culture is actually, now this is a very open area of the culture here, ancient wise, this Mayan aspect of the Mayan culture, because there are multiple ones which are all still very alive and active right now, right? Surrounded by them. Lots of people speak Mayan, I'm surrounded by Mayan friends, yes. So is that tourists come here and project their experience on the Mexican people. So I have friends in Canada that I go, oh, the Mexican people, they're so polite and they're so incredibly, like, they have a lot of structure and they're very polite and kind of, anyway, they're conservative in a lot of ways. And they go, oh no, I went to Mexico and it was party. I was like, well, that was you. You're a tourist. You were here to buy a party, so they sold you one.
Yeah.
Whereas, yes, it's like a Roma culture. If you get to come, like, over to our house and listen to the music and eat food and, so forth and so on. But when we are coming through town, we are entertaining you with music. We are entertaining you with dancers. We are selling you the wine we made, which is one of my family. Those are all my family's things anyway. And so we are providing an experience for you by which your experience within the context, your behavior is woo. And then you say, oh, that's you. When in fact, not every family is, sensually conservative, but certainly a lot are very. So the idea of, but dancing, the idea that the female body is innately sensual and built as a performance for men, so that people who dance, people who move, are performing for men sexually rather than they are moving their bodies. And I've seen men, it was, boy, this was the end. This dude was never getting home with me at the end on this date. My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding is on the TV, and there are like 9 to 11-year-old girls learning how to dance, and he starts talking about what they are, and I was like, All right. Well, but that was the end of that date. Oh no, I let him buy. It was when I still drank alcohol. I let him buy me a few more drinks because I was like, I could drink you under the table, and I'll just keep taking your money and telling you off about all the ways you're wrong. Sorry, it was a moment.
Mm-hmm.
But the sexualization of women's bodies is across the board, and any culture that's othered.
Yeah, and
Especially, yeah.
I experienced that in a small way with having red hair, and there are men who, oh, I've never been with a redhead before, so therefore, I want to pursue you just because I have a thing for red hair, and I'm like, do you honestly think that that makes me different in bed than a brunette or a blonde, or or am I like something on a scavenger hunt list that you gotta check off the redhead? It's really gross, and you can't really search ethnicity as much on online dating sites, but you can search hair color, and you can search body type. So
Wow.
busty, nerdy MILF redhead is apparently a very niche fetish category. And so, yeah, like I get that a small amount, but
Yes.
I can buy a box of hair dye, although I don't want to. I got some grays coming in here that I got to cover. But anyways, I don't want to hide who I am, and nor should you hide who you are just because men are being gross.
Right. And it's funny though, again, like this is something that I noticed if anyone can see the contrast between the picture and where I am now. I've got to be honest, there is so much consent culture, consenta cultura seems to be very innate within my insensibility already.
Mm-hmm.
And is very much a part of the culture here. People are so respectful and not grabby. It's unbelievable. And also, I'm the same size as the men here. Like, they're generally my height.
Mm-hmm.
And what that has done for me on a mental level is unbelievable. I am so much more comfortable in my own skin. And as a result, and this has been a huge issue in I've always faced this with different clients before. I hadn't faced how or conscious whatever the idea that when I felt threatened by someone, I would gain 10 or 20 pounds to try. I wanted less attention from men.
Yeah.
And I'm much more comfortable in my own skin, partly because I'm not like the dark girl that stands out, with the exotic cheekbones that stands out. Definitely the lack of fetishism for my looks is huge. And then just the physical comfort of being around people my size.
Yeah.
Like people that look like me, like seeing that TV show, there are a lot of different families. Some of them look absolutely nothing like me, but wow, there were moments. Just like there's some amazing documentaries that follow a group of Romani. Now, my family never made it to Romania. There's a lot of, there's 500 intense years there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that add a lot on on the experiences and the trials of Romani culture as it's moved through there. So there's a lot that my family doesn't relate to. And my family being Sinti, we're very early. We left like 2300. We left to build the Temple of Solomon. That's why we started traveling. And it took a freaking long time, right? It took like 50, 80, 120 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time we went back to northern India, there was a huge war. We'd already been away for a really long time. We bonded with all these other interesting people. Boy, my math brain is awesome. Dancing, math, music, architecture. These are cultural strengths. Ooh, a little bit of background music. Very nice there. Very nice.
That song is I Am the Fire by Hailstorm. That is like my jam. It is my alarm first thing in the morning. And that song is like everything to me right now. So anyways.
I'm going to totally listen to that. That's awesome.
You will love it. You will adore I Am the Fire.
Very freaking cool. Very cool. So yeah, the mythology, the mythos of we couldn't get back to northern India because we were in southern India and into the Middle East. And so there was war. It was a really long war, as all wars were then, because how long did it take? There's no sending a missile. There's sending an army, and it can take them a year and a half.
Yeah.
So the one way. Can you imagine sending a message? The patience these people must have had. Also, you got to be really angry to march for like months and still be PO'd when you get there. Like, take me for a nice long walk. My anger dissipates. I'm over it. Yeah. I'm a very passionate person. I get very freaking angry really fast, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I don't actually give a flying floodles most of the time. Like, most of the time, there are no floodles to give in Laurien land. There's very little to floodle about. Like basic in just equity, injustice, kindness, the honoring. Oh gosh, really, I really need to mention this. How important. So a huge cultural basis again. The understanding, especially because you talk a lot about tarot and magical practices. Don't push things around. Everything is alive. Ask first. Don't mess with elementals. Don't trap things. Don't possess things and things. Respect. These are beings. They have a life. You are pulling them away from their friends and their families and their life purpose. Make friends in the universe. Make friends with the universe. Make friends with the spirit of the plant. Don't try to push it around. It's like a puppy. Well, except it's not like a puppy. It's a sovereign, brilliant being. It may have been around in this form of consciousness for 150,000 years or 150 million. We don't know. And if it's not paying attention to us, don't be a big jerk about it. Like, ask a redwood a question. How long it's been there for 400 years or whatever. Yeah. It's going to take a while to answer. It might not even notice you. You're a gnat.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a really persistent gnat, like that awesome ant that danced with me, I was like, hey, you got my attention. Let's
2 weeks ago, I had Ira Timothy on the show, who's a very good friend of mine, and he's Native American and First Nations. And we were talking about, or was that before he came on? Because he was having Wi-Fi issues. He's out on res near Chatham. And so we're having Wi-Fi issues. But I'd mentioned, like, when I show up in a forest that I've never been to before, I am not welcome. Because I'm a white person showing up here and I have no right to do anything or take anything. Like, if I want to develop a relationship with that forest, the first thing I do is I announce myself and I say you're supposed to go back 7 generations. I don't know 7 generations maternally. So I go back as, 4 generations maternally, which is as far as I know, and where my ancestors are from and what my purpose is here, and that I come in peace. And so, like, because there have been so many European white people doing horrible, horrible stuff to that land. And so, and usually, like, if it's hiking trails that are used a lot, like, public hiking trails and not like way out in the middle of nowhere, they're like, and this happened with a nature area in London. It was like, oh, you want a relationship with these woods? Okay, well, you got to work for it. And it was like, every time I come in, I'm picking up garbage. And it was like a full year of going weekly and picking up garbage before I was allowed to ask freaking anything. And then, like, different species of trees will have their own attitudes. Like, you try asking an elder tree for anything, fuck no. And again, like, you might get an answer, you might get a yes, but it's like, okay, we'll spend 2 weeks cleaning up the weeds that are choking my roots, and take away that thorn and do this and do that. And like, we need to realize that grew on its own. So we were talking about like a puppy. Well, puppies, humans bred them for our use, for our enjoyment. Like Merlin's a beagle. There are no wild beagles. We took wolves, and over generations we made them our own animals, and so he is bred to be a hunter. And he's bred to be a snuggler, as you know, because you got to experience Merlin snuggles in the car. But yeah, I mean, his job, like when he howled, then like that's something that is genetically programmed into him by humans to howl to get my attention when he would tree a raccoon if I was a hunter. He's a terrible hunter because I've never trained him to do that. But there are still things that they exist by humans, for humans, because of humans. And we still need to respect that as a life, but we need to take responsibility for that life, which is why it's important to treat these animals that we created so well. But to realize that an elder tree, a willow tree, a maple tree exists on its own, not because humans did that. Well, I guess willow trees they're naturalized, like they're not from here, the weeping willow. But yeah, a maple tree, a pine, like that's, who the fuck am I to tell a pine tree or ask anything from an oak? Who am I to ask anything? There's my quote. Who am I to ask anything from an oak?
Beautiful. And I'd like to suggest that the thing of that humans always to introduce yourself, to be like, hello, yes, ask permission.
Yeah.
Like, hello, I would really like to come, exactly, this is my intention. And then I'm going to suggest that we'll always bring gifts.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
There's the biggest offering a human can make is humility, is to say, I have no clue. Yeah. I have the intention. My intention is to be as harmonious, be as useful, leave no trace, be kind to the forest. But I am learning. And if now, on the one hand, it is not your responsibility, like any being, it is not your responsibility, forest, to teach me how to be here. Mm-hmm. But please, if I know I have things to learn and I want to understand. So teach me the language of teach me how I can better understand, right? Yeah. And from a place of kindness and choosing from your place in self, like being like, I'm choosing to be kind to myself and to the world, and not like, you don't invite a shit show. We don't need shit shows. There's so much shit show. Sorry.
I said fuck earlier. We're long past demonetized. So we're
right. Because yes, it's like that. Even to the thing of you're taking a pee in the forest. Let something know it can get out of the way. Don't assume that it wants to be peed on.
Yeah.
No, it's like if you're walking through some grasses, say, oh, just coming through, set your intention is to not step on anything that's there, to work with what is there. And those small steps, right? Because again, this is actually not our realm. We are just part of what is here.
I'm hoping to have Morgan Daimler on the show at some point, who is like the fairy whisperer. And she will be the first one to tell you, like, fairies can mess you up, and they can be wonderful if you develop that relationship with some of the Seelie Fae. But yeah, and especially like you can't use the rules of Celtic Fae on Native American land. So if I was to go to England or Scotland or Ireland and I was going to leave an offering, for me to leave an offering of Jameson whiskey would be a wonderful gift. For me to leave that in a forest in Ontario, that's poison. And that's a declaration of war. So that needs to be so intensely understood. I went to a summer camp not too far from London, and that was kind of my first exposure. Well, actually, no, I had exposures long before that, but I went there year after year, and I developed a relationship with the woods there. And then I sent my daughter there, and I remember like going there and leaving an offering. I had made zucchini bread, and I'd left like that was my offering to the woods because I was like, okay, I'm leaving my child with you. Take care of my baby girl, and that was really So we are approaching the actually we've passed the hour mark, but I wanted to thank you so much for coming on this channel. Actually, we had a question I'd missed, and I kind of missed it on purpose.
Oh. All right. Give you a second to come back here. Hello, lovely people. Thank you so much for having me. It has been really joyful and amazing sharing with you. And it's my honor to get to talk about my ancestors.
Okay, I'm back here. Yes, so I wanted to, the question was, I don't know where I hit something. Yes, but where did the question go? Was Marissa's question? I have ancestry from all over the place. I was called a natural witch by a priest. Is there a way to trace back ancestry and cultural to find out if I share in this culture? I was thinking of having you back to talk about ancestors, probably November-ish. I don't know what my schedule is going to be like, what anything's going to be like in the world. But yeah, I would love to have you back so we can talk more about some ancestor stuff, because I think that would be awesome. Because I love our conversations and how much I learned from you, and I think that you feel the same way. So I am going to check out of here. Thank you so much for your wisdom and for sharing with us today. And I love to see you soon. Thank you to my mods. Yay! I have the best mods. And thank you so much to my other viewers. Thank you. And thank you to the replay crew. I will talk to you later. Bye, pumpkins. Bye, Laurien.
Bye, beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.